Any additional items? Good.
Nobody's listening.
All right.
Yep.
First item are minutes of the council committee meeting held Monday, April 7th. The recommendation is that those be approved.
So moved. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 2 is a report related to the Parks Spark. Bring Coquitlam Parks alive. And we had introductory comments by the acting general manager of Parks, Recreation, and Culture.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just some very brief comments. I know Council got a full agenda today. So Kathleen Ranheimer is with me, Manager of Parks. She's been obviously spearheading this initiative. We're pretty excited about this different take on an adaptive park program. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, but we don't intend to present to Council. It's really just the information that you have in your report, slightly augmented. Again, respecting Council's time on this. And I do want to acknowledge staff and corporate communications as well as our park focus group that's also been involved in helping us brand and roll out this initiative. It's a creative approach on a traditional adoptive park program. Just a couple points I'd like to make. The contributions, the volunteer contributions under this kind of initiative are not, there's no displacement of city park work. It is enhancements to our normal traditional work, so just make that clear. It isn't around shifting from our regular work to work done by volunteers. Really, it's an enhancement, and it's a real cooperative work that we do with volunteers with the end goal not being the production or creation, but certainly the engagement of individuals and schools and organizations. We also, just to maybe put it a little bit higher, we're also coming forward with the Park Gift Program, which will, again, create a different approach to how people connect with our parks, both in their lifetime and through their, as they pass in their lifetime. Often there's park gifting, and there's also additional initiatives in that regard which will follow. So this is just one part of this, and we're very excited about that. Kathleen can also answer questions around the details of this program. And we're just here to answer any questions Council may have. You want to bring up the yeah?
It makes it obvious.
Show us.
Like, yes.
Now this is so I'll let Kathy go through the presentation, but you can see the just to showcase some of the work that the communication staff in the cities is putting together for us. We're pretty excited about.
And there's a stack of T-shirts behind you, both in black and green, so there's enough there for everybody who wants to help us spread the word about this program. And they're in various sizes, and if there isn't something there that works for you, just let me know, and I'll make sure you're equipped. As well, there will be hats and that kind of swag for the volunteers as well, moving forward.
We don't have to dress up, do we?
No, never. Not unless you want to.
One day we'll get a pink T-shirt, right?
Any color will work.
You have to be a firefly.
Does Council would Council like a presentation on this?
Flip through quickly. Just go through and walk us through.
Okay. So really quickly, and this is a lovely PowerPoint template that corporate communications did for us that I just love. You can see the tagline, Bring Coquitlam Parks Alive, is really the point we're trying to make through all of this. This presentation is just intended to skim over the goals of the initiative, show you the brand identity, remind you of all the things we've already got underway and things we've done recently, as well as make sure you have an invitation to our launch event. So really, what's in the name? Part of the goal is to make sure that we are providing something that appeals to a new generation of volunteers, people who are interested in something in addition to what we're already doing, and make sure that we make Coquitlam's Park volunteer initiative unique and memorable. It also, we want to stimulate, make sure that we have something for each component of our community who wants to make a difference. So the new volunteer initiatives are about making sure we have something for busy families, that people who are either retiring early and still want to do something meaningful in their community, or the whole youth engagement thing is huge these days. And then, of course, appeal to a diverse community who needs an introduction and wants to connect with what we have in the city for parks. And about making a difference, we already know there's a huge appetite on part of schools, businesses, service clubs, churches, and individual residents. Our goal is to increase the engagement of volunteers and making sure that they connect to each other as well as to the parks themselves. The sweat equity term that comes from the DIY part of our community, we had 2 successful initiatives last year that were really a template for what we're going to do. I don't know if you remember, but Fortis gave us $30,000 to build a new community garden and hoop house. And the students, that's not a very good photo, the students and staff worked on an arbor swing in Mundy Park that was also really well done. Yeah, it probably looks better on that one. And the Inspiration Garden, we've had, just for your information, in the last year we've got over 1,000 people attending programs or being part of school tours. That doesn't include the parent volunteers. A lot of volunteers, I don't have an updated number of hours that they've given, but thousands of hours there. As well as the community garden, we already have a 40-person waiting list for people who want to be involved. So that's going really well. Some of the things celebrating what we're doing, we've already got 300 people. At that photo in the middle, again, you can't see. It's actually a bag that goes around the base of a newly planted tree that allows a resident to water it, to basically fill it up, and it'll water the tree through the season. We have 300 right now adopted of newly planted boulevard trees in the city. We expect at least another 100 for this year. So that's an ongoing. It has that dual purpose of connecting people. They feel responsible for the tree as well. It replaces the money we'd have to spend on a contractor. Of our 95 kilometers of park trails, more than 50 kilometers of that is adopted by individuals or community groups, 33 in all. Really impressive numbers around the Bad Seed program, what we've already got going in the last 5 years, or since 2008. We've had 14,000 plus volunteer hours contributed, and they've succeeded in removing invasive plants and replanting them with native species for a total of almost 40,000 square meters of park. And so that's being monitored to make sure that those are well established, and that's an ongoing initiative that's very successful. So Park Spark is really about adding to those what we're already doing, making sure that we are ready and prepared to meet people where they are in terms of what they'd like to contribute to, and also to embrace things that are unusual, that are not normally part of an adopted park program. Certainly one of the things that's a good example, we've been approached by the Legion and the veterans who want us to be recognizing that this is 100 years since the start of the First World War. So not only is there going to be a volunteer planting of 100 poppies in Blue Mountain Park, but there will also be, we're having created templates that will allow family members, groups, community groups to paint poppies on grass and sidewalks, any hard surface. So there'll be poppy painting. So that's what we're calling landscape painting, but it's really the fact that we have lots of paint that can be only there for a couple of rains or be there for a month or two. We can do it on a really ad hoc basis and make a very meaningful contribution to recognizing those significant dates for the veterans. So there's a lot of things happening in social media that allow us to get people together, doing things together within our parks. So we're thinking about flash mob activities. You're probably familiar with a group of people practicing a dance and then performing in a public place. We're thinking about things that have more in common actually with old-fashioned caroling. So people can arrive at a place and sing together. It's not something that takes a lot of anybody who wants. In fact, and there's a lot of things that we can embrace on this that make people feel like this is my place. I can be there and do things with others. And they aren't specifically, they don't need to have a legacy. Some of them will, but they can be things that people do together. So with the kinds of things you might be familiar with, there have been yarn bombies where groups of knitters have gotten together and covered something in knitting. It's a kind of, you have to smile. It's very connecting, and it's temporary. And so those are the kinds of things that we're looking to embrace. And then, of course, the seasonal lighting and around Lafarge, you may not, we've never given you the numbers, I don't think, but in excess of 25,000 bulbs have been lit in that area to date. But really, we want to enrich it by making sure we have an opportunity for community groups or individuals to either come out and add some experience to that site during when it's lit, or actually add to it, so they can construct, they could decorate trees or add a part of the decoration. Because one of the things I think really can't be stressed too much is that we have the only municipal lighting display that isn't gated and secured. And the only way that that works is that people feel that value in it, and they appreciate it, and they don't destroy it. So the more we have community organizations, for instance, we've got a fair number of community choirs who would love to perform, and if they can perform and invite whoever is in the park at that night, it adds that layer of experience that's protective in the end. So, as I say, we've got a launch event scheduled for, somehow this didn't get updated. That's the wrong date. It's June 6th.
Yeah.
And the focal point of it will be the construction of a new trail entrance arbor, as well as the planting of a display garden. But there will be some surprises as well. So, looking forward to that launch. Thank you.
Outstanding. This seems like right up your alley, though.
It's fun stuff.
It's true. I can see the excitement in you. Jerry.
Yeah, not questions as much as some comments. Just that seems like a tremendous program, and I need to point out that this is really building on one of Coquitlam's strengths. The last year's Ipsos Reid poll showed an all-time high level of satisfaction with parks, trails, and other green space at 97%. Well, I guess this will move it up to almost 100, maybe. Who knows? Anyway, already a high level of satisfaction. It might get lower if they see council members in green T-shirts running around. So I think that's really good. In terms of, I think this works at so many different levels. It's obviously community engagement, protecting the parks by having people engage with the parks. It's also good. It's a kind of a showpiece activity for us as well. And if we're doing these sorts of things. I was in Beijing about 5 or 6 years ago, and in one of their central parks, they have choirs that just gather there unofficially, and they sing a revolutionary songs, so it's great. They're all senior citizens singing these songs because they don't get to sing them anymore, and but it's become quite a tourist attraction, actually, so people are gathered around taking pictures, and it's quite moving, so that sort of thing really works. So congratulations, I think it's a great program.
Stop, Lou.
Lou.
Yeah, thank you. So you're going to have volunteers watering plants, watering trees, and everything else you're talking about?
We already have about 300 individual homeowners who are watering the trees in front of their homes, yes.
Okay, so eventually, can I think that in your budget you got $25 for every tree? Are you eventually going to get rid of that $25 on each tree? Is that still
The more trees,
in your budget?
You're right, we save money. So when somebody's adopted a tree, then we don't have to pay the contractor to water them for the first 5 years.
So it'll be coming off the budget then? Or is
Yes.
it still going to be there?
It's still going to be there. because all we ask for budget is the difference between is what we're going to actually have to care for.
It'll come off.
Sorry, what she
Thank
meant
you
was
very much.
the ones that aren't being cared for by any costs that aren't covered by this are going to be still in the budget, obviously, because they're not
Yes.
covered by
Right.
this.
That's right.
Okay.
More trees.
Good. We may.
Mine is, I like the program, I really do. I think it's going to be lots of fun. But under the conversion of the existing auxiliary labor funds to create a full-time park, are we going to do this on a basis, for 2 years or 1 year or something to see how it works out? Because what I'm concerned about is creating a position that it might not work. That's
Part of the way we structured that position is, and in fact, we've posted and are just hiring it now, we got approval in the 2013 budget. Part of the way we created is that it's kind of an inside-outside job that will allow us to have that person working as part of a crew. on the landscape crew when they don't have initiatives to do.
Okay, so
Yes.
they're not going to be tied to one thing?
No.
Okay, that's my
No.
big concern, because then we're
Yes,
stuck. Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
thank you.
Okay, moving on. Anybody else? No, I'm actually thrilled with this. As you know, this I think is a great program. It offers great opportunity. We hear all the time from our citizens, including our, and almost especially our multicultural citizens. How can we help? How, tell us how to volunteer, because there are a great many people that, both students and others, who are really looking for that unique volunteering opportunity that will help them be fully engaged in our society. And I think this is absolutely wonderful. I want to see flash mob choirs.
Move receipt.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
They take solo acts too.
Yes, a flash mob choir of one.
I'm there.
Yes.
Singing Christmas carols.
But we'll do that whenever we want to vacate the park.
That's right.
Empty the park.
Item 3 relates to Port Coquitlam's East of Fremont route study. Coquitlam response?
I want you to make it as interesting and exciting as the last report.
Wow.
Or the t-shirts?
They're t-shirts.
Yes. Some to Poco.
Let's call it.
I went east of Fremont, and all I got was this T-shirt.
Whose phone is that?
Lose.
That's just
Who's got a new ring?
Nice.
Yeah.
Your Worship, I think this was the most interesting part of our section here. But
Phone ring.
the phone ring.
Or Lewin is.
So we have a fairly simple report on your desk, but potentially it can have and will have very significant implications to the city of Coquitlam. In a nutshell, last month the city of Port Coquitlam notified us, sent a letter advising us that they are proceeding with a transportation study for the realignment of the Fremont, the route known as the Fremont route. And we fully understand the reasons, and we applaud their intent to deal with this ahead of the time, because it certainly demonstrates a lot of foresight at their end. However, in the context of knowing what the terms of reference is for this study, what the relatively small budget is, and the time frame for this study, I don't think we can expect miracles from this study. But the city of Coquitlam, in response to their advice to us, we need to respond, and certainly we need to know council's position or opinion, requests, what we need to convey to the city of Port Coquitlam in this respect. In a nutshell, the proposed alignment would go away from the existing Fremont potential alignment to up to about 330 meters to the east to Lincoln Avenue, but should there be a continuation towards to the north or northwest to join Victoria Drive, there are all sorts of issues, and perhaps the best is to look at attachment 3 as it describes the proposed alignment. The issues north of Lincoln and immediately east of Fremont is there are environmental issues related to water courses, as well as that area is in the ALR. Similarly, the area of the realignment, at least in part, south of Lincoln, within the jurisdiction of Port Coquitlam, is also in the ALR, but it's a special study area, so there are some significant challenges. So what at this point we are considering is to respond to Port Coquitlam, outlining our concerns, and also we would want to advise them that if they, within their jurisdiction, manage to realign this connection onto Devon Street, then their study should include that 330 meters or so of Lincoln Avenue towards to the west to Fremont. So this is in a nutshell, just to introduce the topic.
Thank you. This is certainly something that it looks like Port Moody is doing properly. Port Coquitlam is doing properly. I just obviously it impacts us, and anytime we change a plan that's been in place for a long time, it some effects. So, Council, Terry, Greg.
Yes, thank you. I'm particularly concerned with this Devon Street alignment in that the Port Coquitlam proposal just has it ending at that boundary of Port Coquitlam and Coquitlam to the north there, and doesn't include anything beyond that. We're suggesting they look at a connector running to the west, to the Fremont Street over there at the west. But does Port Coquitlam say anything about what they expect, would want, or proposing to happen at the north end of Devon there? Do they expect, or would they suggest that Devon be continued? I know in the attachments to our draft letter, we've got sort of a little right-of-way put in there of Devon continuing up to the DeBouville Slough, but then what would happen? Are they suggesting a bridge over the slough? Are they suggesting a connector road on the south side of the slough, the Fremont? I mean, they kind of left it hanging there. Have they said anything about what their expectations are?
Through the chair. No, the letter that we received from Port Coquitlam had two portions to it. One was the minutes from their finance committee, and what the minutes contained was that they were deviated from the staff recommendation. So initially, you can see Fremont, there's just to the west of the blue dotted line is a street named Fremont Street. So in the staff report, that Fremont Street was identified as the alignment, and then the blue line, which is the BC Hydro alignment, that is what the staff report had recommended. But when it went before council at the Intergovernmental Finance Committee, it was at that time that council had said, well, no, we don't want to use this existing Fremont Street. We want to shift it to the east. And so I think part of their study results will be to look at, well, then how would it connect back to Coquitlam and the Fremont portion that's north of Lincoln Avenue. We did not give any indication at the north end of Devon, in other words, other than asking us to reconsider our alignment. In other words, would we be willing to move it east towards Devon Street?
Yeah, so with our draft response, we're saying, well, if you guys for some reason decide that you do want it to the east on Devon, then our preferred route from that point on would be to go hard west along Lincoln and not to go up through the ALR land and to the DeBouville Slough. But I checked Port Coquitlam's actual the material they released that wasn't in our package as well, and yeah, it does. That material just stops at Lincoln Avenue there as well, going north of Devon. So it's certainly. Have you in any personal contact or department contact has Port Coquitlam staff told you anything about their view on what would happen north of Lincoln on Devon, on the Devon route?
Not at this time, no.
Nothing. So is it your understanding this was strictly a council decision to move to propose Devon and not a staff consideration or anything? So there's maybe no engineering background that goes with this or traffic study background?
Not at this time, because they're in very early stages. So an alignment study is sort of the earliest stage, and so they need a route through. And so we do know that one end of the route is Burns Road, which is shown on the south, and the north end, in our perspective, is Fremont, which connects to Victoria. And so really this study that Port Coquitlam is going to do will identify the route through those two key points. From our perspective, they have asked, would we reconsider our alignment? And the staff response is saying, well, no, because, and we've outlined the various reasons within this report. But we wanted to
Sure.
obtain
And
feedback
I'll
from
say I
council.
support the draft letter. Thank you.
Good, great.
So I remember this from 40 years ago, and back when this was all bush out there, and it was the Fremont connector, and homes were built in what is now the Riverside subdivision, and they built their homes without driveways. They face away. Fremont is basically right now a 2-lane lane behind some houses, and I thought this is really good planning. They know that someday this is going to be a major road through there. And yet I see that they have moved the lower section off of Fremont over onto Burns Road. Have they given us any indication why they've made the shift from what has always been sort of in the regional plan here over to Burns? Do we have any idea? Is there something why they've moved over there?
When the Pitt River Bridge was being built, they were asked to look at the alignment, and so Fremont in that area is actually already constructed through north through to Dominion. There are a number of, as you were, a number of land use development sites that have been in there. So the shift to use Burns Road is not entirely a surprise to staff. It's we understand it. It made sense. There is an existing road in that area that would, Burns Road, for example, is a road that can accommodate the needs and has that direct link to low heat at Pitt River. The portion to the north of that, though, is really the one that is under study right now. And from our perspective, as long as we maintain our alignment in the Fremont corridor north of Lincoln, that would eliminate any need to take on any undue cost to Coquitlam.
So the shift over, or the new alignment, isn't because they're moving away from Fremont. You know, the decision is really to move to Burns. It's just a question, I guess, how we connect the dots, if you will, between the solid line that they're committed to, which is the Burns alignment now, instead of the Fremont down there. Okay, and we've got certainly the top of the portion up there, which is still on Fremont. Yeah, I mean, you know, as somebody who lives up on Burke Mountain and sees the traffic, and it's not just Coquitlam traffic. I see people coming from Port Moody and other places of Coquitlam coming along David, down Coast Meridian, down to the bottom. Some of them turn on Cedar and go in the back way. But essentially what we have is a whole lot of people that are trying to get through to Home Depot, Walmart, Canadian Tire, you know, that industrial area, that commercial area. So what we're seeing is people coming through north side Port Coquitlam. It's not Burke Mountain residents. They will be there too, and they will want to shop in this development that Port Coquitlam has created. It's just a question of what's the most efficient way to move them through our neighborhood and through the Port Coquitlam neighborhood. And I look at the dotted red line, and I thought that's a rat run. I mean, that's sort of here, turn a right here, hang down here. And you know, and I think that what we want to do is that we want to make sure that we align up with something that's going to be functional for our residents and to handle the traffic that's coming through our neighborhood to get to theirs. So you know, I've heard people in Port Coquitlam express, well, it's, you know, they've expressed the argument that it's all Burke Mountain development. But it's not. It's development moving through this corridor, some using David, and they're trying to reach a shopping district that Port Coquitlam is developing. So I look at this and I sort of say, what can we do at our end that's going to create the least amount of impact to all residents and the least amount of environmental impact? And I'm concerned about moving over to Devon because that is environmentally sensitive. And I'm also worried that what the timing is. If they come up with an alignment that works on the south side of Lincoln, we pretty much have to come up with an alignment now, because the last thing I would want to see is a road or an alignment being constructed that goes nowhere, that we later don't have the ability to hook up to, either through environmental or for ALR reasons. And I think it's great they're coming now and they're saying this is our alignment, but this is like building half a boat. I mean, we've got to make sure that our part is going to line up and that we will have the ability to build that later. If we have to shift over, we may not be able to do that. And if we don't know that we can shift over, I don't think that they should be shifting over because we could end up with an alignment that doesn't work, and then the thing doesn't get built at all. And then we're back to where we were 40 years ago, just talking about the future and possibly looking at a different alignment. I have one question. On executive summary here, page 1, it says, the City of Coquitlam further advises that it will address any environmental and social impacts related to the portion of the road within its jurisdiction at the functional design stage. What is the functional design stage? That speaks to my earlier comment. Is that when it's too late?
No, the functional design stage is similar to what Council will have seen the work that we did on Victoria Drive. It's once you know where the route is, once you know where the dots are going to go, then the next stage is to delve in a little bit closer and look at, well, what are the actual number of lanes, for example? What would the route look like? What are the environmental impacts? How much land is impacted? That's functional designing. So it's one level more detailed than an alignment study. An alignment study is where you're trying to pick between the routes. And so what we have offered to Port Coquitlam and have discussed at the staff level is that we have funding available in our budgets, that we could do some joint planning of this north section with them once they've done the work to the south, once they've actually determined how they're going to get to the corner of Fremont and Lincoln. So we've offered to do some additional detailed work with them if they're interested in doing that. That's what that means.
So that answers my first part of the question, is that if they determine that they want to stop the road here, we're going to figure out how we connect to it. And if we can't do it, that's when we will do the environmental assessments, figure out, and if we can't do it, then they're going to have to be notified that that alignment doesn't work because we can't connect to it, and then they will have to reconsider how they get to that point. Is that what I'm reading from this?
The area in the box that is the section where we said add Devon Street alignment, City of Coquitlam request, that is what the purpose of this letter is okay. That we're actually asking them to include, when they're comparing the two options, we're saying you kind of need to put this missing 330 meters into your own analysis, including your costing analysis, so that you can compare it to the blue line. So when you're doing alignment studies, you want to be able to compare apples to apples. And so really, so what we're suggesting is if you want to use Devon in your study, then you need to add a little bit more to it and compare it to the blue line. So that's what this letter says. Either way, what we're saying at the staff level is we'd like you to arrive back at the corner of Lincoln and the existing Fremont alignment.
So because I've seen plans that have suggested that we would sort of almost diagonally cut through there, and that's through a lot of sensitive land. So if they determine that the best route is to end at Devon and Lincoln, our position really is that you're going to have to make that sort of left-hand turn, right-hand turn, and we're going to have to do that sort of what I call a sort of wrap-run route. It won't be a continuous flow up there because we'll have to stay within the existing road right-of-ways and alignments at our end. Correct. Okay. So okay. Good. Thank you.
The alignment studies intended to figure out whether it's practical, possible, and political, I guess. And later on, they design details of it, but that's another
next step.
Right now, Great.
Okay, a couple questions. In their study, maybe I missed it, but have they applied for agricultural land permission to even do the little bit of jog that they're talking in? Because they're disenfranchising some ALR land, which ALR doesn't like to have land disenfranchised. Do they have any information or comments from the ALR on the portion that they're showing in red going up to Devon Street? Do they have any comments or?
At this time, their study is just starting. That's in their scope of work. So the scope of work means that they would go to the...
So they haven't...
Correct.
So that's very preliminary. They haven't even gone to the ALR at any sense to get any consideration whether that's possible or not.
Correct. For the Devon Street alignment.
For the Devon Street alignment.
Yeah.
The second part is that on the Devon side, in our area north of Fremont, Lincoln, we have a development there of an equestrian that was approved just recently. And that also before, because they asked us not to approve that a couple of years ago, but it made all the requirements. And there's, I think, 10 or 13 equestrian land developments all approved, being built, being filled. So how do they, is that within their scope of work also that they're including in there?
No, they're only going to the Lincoln Avenue road allowance, or Lincoln Avenue, which actually does exist right now. So
I
they
know,
don't
I
go
understand
north.
that,
Yeah.
but they understand, so they're, until we do a joint study with them, they haven't really considered the negative impacts taking Devon Street up to Cedar Drive because of Coquitlam's area.
They've not included that portion, and we're saying at the staff level that we don't want that portion included. We don't want to consider the Devon Street portion included north of Lincoln at all.
And I look at this map here, and we have, to me, two set areas. We have the alignment that we have from Victoria Drive down to Lincoln, I think is pretty much where we want to stay. We don't want to move from that. And you have the Burns Road, because the Mary Hill Bypass interchange and everything has now been built to connect. So they're committed to that. So the only 2 points are putting the red and the blue line in between there. And I think for Port Coquitlam, for functionality and road traffic, safety and movement of the traffic, I mean, Councillor Hodge making it, the only thing that makes sense, which has been there for 40, maybe 50 years, is the Fremont arterial alignment where it exists right now. It creates the best functional movement of vehicles back and forth, and they have created a big box retail down there that they are driving traffic to, whether it's from Maple Ridge, Coquitlam, Port Moody, everything. So they have to understand that they've created such a big box retail area that they should be making sure that traffic can flow into there, because they're getting all the tax dollars out of that big development down there. And it's a car-dependent development. It's not a transit-dependent development. That's the other thing. It's a very car-dependent development. So I think in the report, I support the report. I think our alignment should stay on the existing Fremont connector, and we will have a meeting in the future to discuss the Fremont between the cities. Thank you.
Okay. May.
Well, before it was going to cut off a piece of the golf course. And do you remember that? And that was, we thought that was pretty dumb at the time. And that there had to be a way around it, and then there was. And now they've changed all the goalposts. And I guess similar to what Councillor Asmundson just said, when the big box retailers look for a place to go, the demographics and the number of people that are going to move into it within the next 20 years place a huge reason in why Walmart specifically would locate there. And so for Port Coquitlam, when you create that and Walmart expects 200,000 people to be going to that store, a lot of those people are going to be coming not from Port Coquitlam, as Brent has always said. So Burke Mountain and Port Moody, we're all developing, and Port Coquitlam is developing on the north side. So there's a couple of things that concern me. One, I think we should stay out of the agricultural land reserve. We have to stay out. You know, pretty soon we're going to have 200,000 people in 10 years from now. When you ask a kid if he wants lettuce, he's going to wonder what the hell it is, because he's never seen anything grow. We're not going to have any agricultural land left. The second thing I want to ask is Lincoln. Now, Lincoln has always also been the place where our bridge is going to go across. The bridge between David, the other crossing of the Coquitlam River. And so when they're doing the study, and I have no problem cooperating on a study and investing with them to go forward and look at this in the best way we can, because Lincoln's also going to start to play a big part. And Lincoln will also, it will be the escape route off the Lougheed Highway, where people will scoot along over Lincoln and then join in and get down to that big box place too. So I think there's a lot to be looking at here, but I definitely do not want to be going into the agricultural land. That's absolutely for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Most suitably.
So move receipt.
Second. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Just want to, before we wrap up this meeting, acknowledge the last committee meeting of Mr. Rebar himself, Maurice Gravel. better other things, rather, not necessarily better, but probably more enjoyable. And we thank you for the feedback. To that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all of your kind words. It's been icing on the cake to finish my career here in Coquitlam after 35 plus years, and it's been a great experience, very rewarding experience. And thank you, Statland and Council, for supporting strategic initiatives in all our land and facility projects and the way to work. It's a great pleasure to be here.
And Dory, I didn't say any kind words. So why are you thanking me?
Say kind words.
I'm saving those for tonight, but yes, there's more coming. Brent.
Maurice, sad to see you go. It's been a pleasure working with you, but I guess now you can make all the home Saskatchewan Rough Rider games.
Good. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Very unanimous.